In a bustling store, a woman's cruel demand for a young black girl to leave erupts into a firestorm of tension until the girl's father, the owner, strides in with a presence that chills the air. What unfolds next is a jaw-dropping showdown of power, justice, and the unshakable bond of family, leaving the woman scrambling as her world collapses in seconds. Fear grips her, excitement electrifies the crowd, and the urgent question burns. Who really holds the power here? Stay locked. This is a reckoning no one saw coming. The upscale boutique, La Belle Époque, was a sanctuary of luxury. A place where crystal chandeliers cast soft golden light over meticulously arranged displays of designer gowns and handcrafted accessories. The air carried the faintest hint of jasmine and vanilla, mingling with the soft hum of classical music that floated through the speakers. Wealthy patrons glided between racks of silk and chiffon, their manicured fingers brushing against fabrics that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Among them, 12-year-old Maya Carter moved with quiet awe, her dark eyes wide as she traced the delicate embroidery of a midnight blue dress. She wasn't here to buy. Her father had taught her the value of appreciating beauty without always needing to possess it. Today was just about dreaming. Jessica Whitmore had noticed the girl the moment she walked in. Jessica was the kind of woman who carried herself like the world owed her something. Her designer heels clicked with authority, her blonde hair was swept into a flawless chignon, and her cold blue eyes missed nothing. She had spent years cultivating an image of effortless superiority, and she expected, no, demanded, that others recognize it. So when she saw Maya, a young black girl in what she considered her space, something inside her twisted. This isn't right. The thought slithered through her mind. Ugly and unbidden. Maya's presence here, in this temple of exclusivity, felt like an affront. Jessica's lips curled as she watched the girl from across the room, her fingers tightening around the strap of her purse. She didn't belong, not here, not among people like her. With deliberate steps, Jessica closed the distance between them. "Excuse me," she said, her voice sharp enough to slice through the boutique's serene atmosphere. Maya turned, blinking up at the woman towering over her. For a moment, Jessica faltered. There was something unsettling about the girl's expression. Not fear, not yet, just quiet curiosity. That only made Jessica angrier. "This isn't a place for your kind," she spat, the words dripping with venom. The accusation hung in the air, thick and suffocating. A few nearby shoppers paused, their conversations stuttering to a halt. Maya's breath hitched, her fingers still clutching the fabric of the dress. I was just looking," Maya whispered, her voice small. Jessica's laugh was brittle. "Looking or waiting for the right moment to slip something into your bag?" She reached out, her manicured nails digging into Maya's wrist as she yanked her forward. "Let's see what you've got in those pockets." Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. The world around her seemed to blur. The music faded, the lights too bright, the air too thin. She could feel the weight of stares pressing down on her, some shocked, some indifferent, none stepping forward to help. I wasn't... "Manager!" Jessica's voice cut through the boutique like a whip. "Someone call the manager, now!" A sales associate, wide-eyed and hesitant, scurried toward the back. The other customers shifted uncomfortably, some murmuring, others pretending not to notice. A few pulled out their phones, recording in silence. Maya's vision swam. She wanted to run, to disappear, but Jessica's grip was iron. The humiliation burned through her, hot and relentless. She squeezed her eyes shut, wishing for her father, for anyone. Then the doors burst open. A gust of wind swept through the boutique, carrying with it the scent of rain and expensive cologne. The chatter died instantly. Every head turned. And there, silhouetted against the afternoon light, stood Marcus Carter. His presence was like a storm, undeniable, electric. Tall, broad-shouldered, his tailored suit clinging to his frame with the precision of a man who commanded respect without needing to ask for it. His dark eyes locked onto Jessica's hand, still wrapped around Maya's arm, and something in his expression turned lethal. The air itself seemed to still. Jessica didn't know him. Not yet. But the way the staff stiffened, the way the manager, who had just rushed forward, immediately paled, told her everything she needed to know. She had made a terrible mistake. The air in La Belle Époque turned electric as Marcus Carter crossed the threshold. Every staff member within sight snapped to attention like soldiers recognizing their general. The store manager, a nervous man named Laurent who prided himself on handling VIP clients, turned ashen as he recognized both the fury in his employer's face and the child currently being manhandled in his establishment. Jessica felt the first real prickle of unease when the man's shadow fell across her. He moved with the controlled power of a panther, each step measured, deliberate, yet radiating barely contained violence. His custom Tom Ford suit probably cost more than Jessica's monthly condo fees, but it was the way he wore it that commanded attention. The platinum watch peeking from his cuff wasn't flashy, just quietly announcing that this was a man who valued time, and whose time you didn't want to waste. "Daddy!" Maya's cry shattered the tense silence. The raw relief in that single word made several bystanders flinch. Jessica's manicured fingers instinctively loosened their grip, but not fast enough. Marcus's voice when he spoke was deceptively calm, the kind of calm that comes right before a hurricane. "Remove your hand from my child." Each word landed like a hammer strike. "Now." Jessica's mouth opened, then closed. The blood drained from her face as she took in the sudden change in the room's atmosphere. Where before she'd been the center of attention, now every eye was watching her with varying degrees of horror and anticipation. The expensive perfume she'd sprayed that morning suddenly felt cloying, mixing unpleasantly with the cold sweat breaking out along her hairline. Laurent materialized at Jessica's elbow, his whisper frantic. "Madame, you must release her immediately. This is Mr. Carter. He owns La Belle Époque. He owns the building. He owns—" The manager's voice dropped even lower. "Most of the retail spaces in this district." The revelation hit Jessica like a physical blow. Her carefully constructed social armor, the designer clothes, the perfect highlights, the practiced air of superiority meant nothing here. The rules had changed, and she hadn't received the memo. Her grip finally fell away from Maya's arm, leaving faint red marks that made Marcus's jaw clench visibly. Around them, the boutique had transformed into a theater of the absurd. Shoppers who moments ago had been browsing silk scarves now stood frozen, smartphones raised. A teenage sales associate had tears in her eyes. Near the entrance, a security guard who normally dealt with shoplifters had his hand hovering near his radio, uncertain whether to call for backup or stay out of what was clearly above his pay grade. Marcus didn't even glance at the growing audience. His entire focus was on his daughter, kneeling to her level with a tenderness that contrasted starkly with his earlier tone. "Are you hurt, princess?" The question was quiet, meant only for Maya, but in the deathly silence of the store everyone heard. Maya shook her head, but the way she immediately buried her face in her father's shoulder told its own story. Marcus smoothed a hand over her braids, his touch gentle even as his eyes burned with cold fury when he looked back up at Jessica. The socialite found her voice, though it emerged higher than usual. "There's been a misunderstanding. I was simply concerned about store security." She looked. Jessica's words died as Marcus stood, keeping one protective arm around Maya while the other slipped a phone from his pocket. "Laurent," Marcus said, without taking his eyes off Jessica, "pull up the security footage for the last 20 minutes. I want to see exactly what happened before I arrived." His thumb hovered over the screen. "Should I call my lawyers now, or after we review the tape?" The manager didn't hesitate, already moving toward the back office. Jessica's stomach dropped. She'd been in this boutique dozens of times, had spent enough money here to be considered a valued client. Never once had she noticed the discreet cameras positioned throughout the store. Now she mentally retraced her actions, the way she'd approached Maya, the things she'd said, the moment she'd laid hands on a child. Marcus watched the dawning realization play across Jessica's face with grim satisfaction. "You're right about one thing," he said, his voice carrying effortlessly through the boutique. "There has been a misunderstanding. You misunderstood who owns this space. You misunderstood how to treat people. Most importantly," he paused, letting his gaze sweep over the rapt audience before returning to Jessica. "You misunderstood what happens when you touch my child." The first camera phone lights began flashing in earnest now. Jessica could practically see the social media posts being composed in real time. The headlines, the hashtags, the inevitable public shaming, her carefully curated Instagram persona, her spot on the charity gala committees, her standing in the junior league, all of it crumbling because she'd picked the wrong child to harass in the wrong store. Marcus turned slightly, addressing the room at large while keeping Jessica pinned with his stare. "This establishment, and every business I own, has a zero-tolerance policy for racism and harassment." He nodded toward the security guard. "Escort this woman out, then get me every piece of identification she's ever provided this store. Client records, credit card information, VIP membership details." Jessica finally found her voice again, though it came out as more of a squeak. "You can't do that. I'm a loyal customer. I spend thousands here every—" "Not anymore," Marcus cut in. "And not anywhere else in my portfolio. Expect a formal trespass notice by end of day." He glanced down at Maya, who was peeking out from his side now, then back up with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Unless you'd prefer we continue this conversation with law enforcement present? I believe we have ample evidence of assault on a minor." The security guard, emboldened now, stepped forward decisively. Jessica recoiled as he took her elbow, his grip professional but unyielding. The sea of shoppers parted silently as she was led toward the exit, some faces openly gleeful, others shaking their heads in disapproval. Just before the door, she turned back for one last look, at Marcus comforting his daughter, at the staff already springing into action at his quiet commands, at the dozens of phone cameras still documenting her walk of shame. Outside on the sidewalk, Jessica Whitmore stood trembling, the boutique doors clicking shut behind her with finality. Through the glass, she could see the store returning to normal, or rather, to a new normal where everyone had witnessed her downfall. A sales associate was offering Maya a bottled water. Another was carefully folding the blue dress Maya had been admiring earlier. And Marcus Carter was speaking quietly with Laurent, no doubt ensuring that every consequence would be thorough, merciless, and entirely legal. The moment stretched into eternity as Marcus Carter's raised hand froze security in their tracks. The boutique's air grew heavier, thick with anticipation, and the sharp scent of Jessica's expensive perfume gone sour with panic. Every eye in La Belle Époque remained locked on the unfolding confrontation, smartphones still recording, their red recording lights blinking like tiny warning signals. Marcus took a single step forward, his Italian leather shoes whispering against the marble floor. The movement was controlled, deliberate, but carried the weight of a coming storm. Jessica instinctively stepped back, her designer heels catching on the edge of a plush rug. For the first time in her privileged life, she understood what it meant to be prey. "You thought you could bully a child," Marcus began, his voice deceptively soft. "In my store?" Each word landed with precision, the controlled cadence more terrifying than any shout. The security footage monitors near the cash wrap now displayed multiple angles of Jessica's confrontation with Maya, her cruel words playing on loop for all to witness. Jessica's manicured hands fluttered uselessly at her sides. I didn't know." Her voice cracked, the usual confident cadence she used at charity galas and board meetings nowhere to be found. Marcus didn't let her finish. "That's the problem." He moved closer, his shadow falling across Jessica like a judgment. "You didn't know. You didn't care to know. You assumed your money, your status, your—" He gestured dismissively at her outfit, a designer original that suddenly felt cheap under his scrutiny, "gave you power here." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Near the entrance, a barista from the adjacent coffee shop had come to see the commotion, her apron still dusted with cinnamon. Two college-age tourists pressed closer, their phones angled for the best shot. Marcus turned slightly, addressing the room while keeping Jessica pinned in his gaze. "Let me show you what real power looks like." He snapped his fingers once, a sharp sound that made several people jump. Laurent appeared instantly, tablet in hand. Jessica Whitmore, correct? Member since 2018, Platinum Tier, preferred client number 4402. Jessica's breath hitched. They had all her information. Every purchase, every return, every special request. Marcus continued, his voice carrying through the silent boutique. As of this moment, you are banned from all Carter Holdings properties. That includes La Belle Epoque and its 12 sister locations, the Galleria food court, the parking structures, and the upcoming waterfront development. He tilted his head slightly. I believe your condo is in the Orion Tower. My condolences. Our cleaning services contract there expires next month. The blood drained from Jessica's face. Orion Tower's famed white glove service was the reason she'd bought there. Without it, the homeowners association would... Security will escort you to collect your belongings, Marcus said, nodding toward the two guards now flanking Jessica. Laurent will process your account closure and refund any store credits. His smile didn't reach his eyes. I suggest using them elsewhere, permanently. A choked sound escaped Jessica's throat as the reality of her situation crystallized. This wasn't just about one store. Her entire social life, her standing, her carefully curated world was crumbling because she'd chosen the wrong child to harass on the wrong afternoon. Marcus turned his attention to the gathered crowd, his arm tightening protectively around Maya's shoulders. As for the rest of you, his voice softened slightly, remember this moment. Remember how you treat people when you think no one's watching. He glanced meaningfully at the still recording phones, because someone is always watching, and Karma, his eyes flicked back to Jessica, never forgets. The dam broke. The boutique erupted in a flurry of movement and sound. A woman in a Chanel suit began clapping slowly, deliberately. The college students were already live streaming to their followers, rapid-fire commentary overlapping as they narrated Jessica's downfall. The barista pulled out her own phone, texting furiously to what was undoubtedly a group chat. Marcus didn't wait for the spectacle to play out. With one last scorching look at Jessica, he guided Maya toward the VIP lounge in the back, his hand warm and steady on her shoulder. As they passed the midnight blue dress Maya had been admiring earlier, he paused, murmuring something that made his daughter's face light up despite the earlier trauma. Jessica stood frozen, the weight of dozens of judgmental stares pressing down on her. The security guards waited patiently, their expressions neutral but their posture uncompromising. One cleared his throat meaningfully. The walk to the door was the longest 30 feet of Jessica's life. Every step echoed with the whispers of strangers, the occasional flash of a camera, the rustle of fabric as people shifted to get a better view. Just before crossing the threshold, she risked one final glance back, just in time to see a sales associate carefully removing the dress Maya had admired from its display, carrying it toward the back room with obvious purpose. Outside on the sun-drenched sidewalk, Jessica Whitmore stood alone. The boutique's doors clicked shut behind her with finality, the sound muffling the continuing buzz of conversation inside. Through the glass, she could see the store returning to normal, the shoppers returning to their browsing, the staff straightening displays, all of them already moving on from the drama she'd unwittingly starred in. Her phone buzzed incessantly in her purse, friends checking in, no doubt, or worse, people who'd already seen the videos going viral. Jessica didn't reach for it. Instead, she stared at her reflection in the boutique's window, seeing for the first time not the powerful socialite she pretended to be, but the small, cruel person she'd become when she thought no one important was watching. Across the glass, a new sign was being placed in the window. Under new management, equal treatment, guaranteed. Jessica turned away sharply, her heels clicking a staccato rhythm on the pavement as she hurried toward whatever remained of her old life, the truth burning in her mind, brighter than any social media firestorm. She'd picked the wrong girl to mess with. If you liked this story, please like, subscribe, and share it with others so they can learn something from it too.